Okay, so in today's video, I want to go ahead and take the opportunity to first go ahead and show you how to identify vanishing points and perspective within drawing when you're looking at an image so that you can sort of deconstruct and see how artists were able to create the storytelling that you see within backgrounds, within visuals that are so compelling and that really enhance the story to be brought to the big screen. So I love working with Star Wars is one of my favorite series, but I love working with Imperial architecture because it's so clean. It's very easy to sort of identify how the shapes contributed to the total final product of the image. And so we're going to go ahead and first do that right now. So we've gone through some videos talking about reference points, vanishing points. We've talked about the perspective. We've talked about how we use shapes, how we find shadows, all these sorts of different things. And now I'm going to go ahead and I want to show you how to design from the bare bones of construction lines to create backgrounds that are compelling, that are interesting, that are more comprehensive than sort of the basic sketches that you would see about like a 2D house or something. And I want to show you how the artist kind of came about with this project. So something that you may be interested in knowing is that as long as you divide up the segment of an image, you don't have to necessarily have the vanishing points within the image. As you can see, the vanishing points are going to go off to the side. So I want to go ahead and first start off by sort of showing you that. We'll make this a little bit transparent. So first, let's go ahead and start off with lines. I'm going to grab some lines here, and I'm going to use red to start off with the right side, and I'm going to use green to show you the left side. So we have two vanishing points. Obviously, we've got vanishing points that are off in the distance to the left going off screen, and we've got some that are converging on the right side of the screen. So if we go ahead and we start off here, let's go ahead and grab some red. We can see that if we pull this across the top in this direction, there appears to be a vanishing point going off in that direction. And we draw along the line of another surface which is converging, and we see that there's one right here. This is going to be right here. There are many vanishing points that's drawn. This is going to be one vanishing point. This is going to be our right vanishing point right there. This little area that you see, I will grab some blue right there. That's going to be a vanishing point upon which what you're seeing right here, this structure this shape was confined in, this box basically. Okay, so this structure that you see right here, and then what they did was they had it converging backwards. Okay, so to create depth, what we would do is, as you can see, if we drag along one of these lines, we see it's going out in that sense. Let's go along the top because that's easier to see if we drag along this. That would be the interior side. This would be an interior side right there. Dragging off roughly to that corner. And then these would be going off into space like so. And so would that one. Okay. And then obviously that's not the top, it's a little bit higher right here as you see the ventilation shafts are sort of converging off into that point too. And so what you can see is there's this sort of box which was outlined from the top and the bottom that was connected. As you see the step, right, the step right here, we had it in a little bit further in. So you've got right here the actual opening of the duct, which goes straight down like so, and it's elevated, okay, just like that. And this is elevated from the top like so. And now this area, as you can see, from the tops and the bottom, would be converging outwards until the end. So it's like right there, and you have where it's going across, out to about right there, and then going down. And they've got a little bit of 3-point perspective almost going as well because the lines aren't exactly straight down. What they're trying to do, as you can see it, this is pulling down, is really there's just the slightest little bit as you're going off to the edge of distortion when they're creating a 3-point perspective drawing, because in this image, it's in the Death Star. We know it's an orbital shape, orbital sphere. We know that we want to create a sense of visual depth, an ominous sense, a large presence within the atmosphere. It's an immense structure, and so we want that feeling to be uh, portrayed, right? And so you see, there's some dragging which is going down here, which is for 3-point perspective, but all of these structures have slightly different perspectives. So there's an overall larger perspective, right? But not everything is in there. And so they're kind of playing with it a little bit. It's a little bit more, or I should say a little bit less cohesive. This is drawing down, so this is going down. Let's see if we can't connect this up here. Yeah, so that's going to be the right side perspective is right about there, and everything's drawing out from that point, as is the ladder right there, as is the railing. You see this railing right here? That's also converging to this point. So that's off in the distance. And then, of course, the green is what's going back to the left vanishing point. And so that's how we identify that, the left vanishing, the left vanishing point is converging off in that direction, which is what we've shown with the green. And so if we want to solidify this room, right, if this is the end of the corridor right there, as we've seen basically, then what happens is we draw from the perspective point, the right perspective point, and we'll draw this out to meet that bottom gap right there. And then this point, when we eventually find that vanishing point upon which it converges, and off in the distance on to the left, we would draw that outwards in this direction. But as you can see, they don't really care about that, okay? Because all they need to know is that the height reaches right there. And so what we've done is to make sure we know this is a large structure, it's converging off into the distance, everything can be drawn within this room. We have enough information to draw all the little features that you see in this room, and we're okay. So the same thing, we could analyze this for every single part of the whole building, but that's really how we do it. We've got more vanishing points, obviously, as we've seen with the green. If you wanted to show that off over here, this is going out like so. That's going to the vanishing point. This is going to the vanishing point. And so things aren't exactly lining up, but they've got a general sense, and sometimes some objects have different vanishing points. Sometimes they do. You can have multiple vanishing points as long as they're all along, as we talked about, the horizon line. In some cases, what you'd use is the DL. And so this general sense that we've got, I'll draw an orange. As long as everything converges, which these roughly do right there and right here and off in the distance, you can draw your vanishing points all along the horizon line right there. So that's what's important. That's how we analyze drawings, we break them down. How did the artist do this? Now let's go ahead and move into the next segment. I want to show you how we would sort of recreate something like this and how we get these small little details through basic shapes. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and sort of start with the basics here. I've gone ahead and drawn out what you know to be vanishing point 1 and 2's 2-point perspective. We've got our measuring points on both sides. We've got our center line right there. So we'll be able to draw outwards. The first thing we want to do, of course, is we want to try to make a box object. What we want to do is we want to create a sense of of a singular shape to start off here. So I'm going to go ahead and see. I think I want to figure out where I want to put this first area. So I can go like this and draw down right there. Just like that. Okay. And we can create arbitrary depth. So I know that if I do this, and I draw outwards, we're not creating exact boxes here. We're just trying to create, if we're not creating cubes, all we're doing is we're figuring out what looks good, what we're sort of interested in. Now we're going to design this hallway. So I'm going to recreate that one part that you saw there. Okay, now this is vanishing point 1. This is vanishing point 1. So we're going to draw, as we have, to create a box object. It's going to go into the background that way. Now if we want to close this off, right, if we say, you know what, I want to make this hallway, I want to make it a little bit smaller, right? I want them to see that it's going in that way, but I don't want them to fully see the whole hallway, right? Or we can. It depends on what you want to do. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with this. So now we divide the planes, right? So we've just gone ahead and we've recreated that one part that we saw right there. Okay, this is the main section of the hallway, right? So we've got hallway which is going to be going right there. We know there's another area which is going off in this direction. We know that in that one drawing that we saw, we kind of had like the elevators, which were over here, and then we had another section that was going off sort of like over here and sort of like over there, and then there was an entryway which was kind of over here. Okay, sure. And then there was like the railing and that sort of thing. There was the railing which was sort of going off like so. Okay, so we know there was, you know, all of that going on. But we want to focus on creating small detail for this one section. So let's go ahead and start breaking that down. If I go ahead and grab a red, we can segment it like we have before. Just like that. Okay. So now, if you're saying, I want to make it a little bit, you know, a little bit larger, well then you're welcome to. You're welcome to make it a little bit larger. We can play around with it. If you want to see how it looks to be a little bit longer, you can pull it out like that. And you can create, you know, grab your red and drag it out. And maybe that's what you like, is you like that. You like that look a little bit more. Okay, well then we can play around with that. So, let's go ahead and pull this back and let's start dividing it. Let's start fully dividing it. So how do we start off? Well, as we talked about in our one example of the couch, we want to just segment and segment and segment and segment. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw up and over to divide that. Now what I'm going to do is divide it in half. So we know that we had a stepping area so that people could walk through. And we're going to go ahead and keep segmenting this so we can make the smaller details, because we know then the blast door shields, or in the blast doors, that there needs to be some separate paneling. Okay, so we just divide this again, and then what I will probably do is divide it again, just like that. And I think that's about far out enough. So now, what do we do? Well, that's where I want the blast shields to go in, so I'm going to estimate right about right there. If I divided it again, it would probably be about right there. And I'm going to do the same thing for this side. And we segment. And by doing this, we get exact measurements that we can translate across different points. If we draw something on one side, we can draw it on the other side. And this is how we decipher where placement is supposed to go. And so it gets a little convoluted after a period of time. For the next one, I'm going to change colors so that it's not all in orange, so you can see that. Just like that. So we've got half, fourth, eighth. Half, fourth, eighth. Just like that right there. We're going to draw straight up. Just like that. Perfect. So now let's go ahead. We're going to bring this to about half, and we're going to create the next layer. This one we're going to use some red. So we have the option now to divide. We have the option to divide in the opposite direction. So we can go straight through the main center point, and now we've divided it in the opposite direction. Now we can go ahead and just go like that, boop, 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 and boop, just like that. Now we divide it again. We use that same method that we have right here. We're going to draw straight through, right to the back, straight through, right to the back, and now we divide it once more. But I know that it needs to be even higher. So I'm going to go through that again. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that look right there. So we're going to go ahead and segment this. And it's a repetitive process when you create these, but you get finite details when you end up dividing it and fully mapping it out first. It allows you to sort of properly draw and create the smaller details. So I'm going to draw one more time. I'm going to go through right there. There we go. Maybe I'll do one more up here since I've done that, just to make it equal. We'll go right here, in here. We'll divide it right up through there. Perfect. So now we get to create the front layer, right? We get to create the front layer. So we're going to bring this down to half. So now we've got everything going out, and you see, you're like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. Okay, but we now know where we can draw. Everything. So my feeling is I want to go ahead and I want to sort of draw out area right here to know exactly where the door is going to be. It's going to be between this area. Okay. Now I want the bottom floor to line up. So I think I want the step to be on this level. I want the step to be on this level. Okay. So make that kind of light. And I'm going to translate that point up. I want the step to be on that level. We can even make the top even lower if we want, because no one's walking through that. And we can, you know what, we can even bring the opacity down on this even more so that we can see fully what it is that we're drawing. Now, I want to create the blast door feeling. So we know that we have these doors which sort of slide, right? We know that we have these doors that sort of slide. So as we know, we have lots of armor, lots of layers that exist between here. So I'm going to go ahead and say this line right here, I draw straight up and down. This line is first one. is where the opening sort of begins. It's going to be right about there. So now what I can do is I can go ahead and sort of say, okay, so that's going to be the bottom. That's what's going to be stretching out. I see that. Now I want to go inwards. So I'm going to go from this line right here. Where do I want the blast doors to be? I sort of want them to walk through it. Okay. So now what we have to do is we have to create dimensionality. So we have outlined our basic shapes right here. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. Now we can turn these two off and we sort of see how the outline is going to be at the front. Now what you want to do is you want to go ahead and draw depth. So we can draw depth. And I want the hallway to end at about right here. Have it be about right there. So I'm going to go up this, and I'm going to go down right here. Just like so. It'll probably go up if we're following that. So then that means the highest point is actually up there, and this point is kind of going out. So we're going to adjust this a little bit. And we want this to be going in that direction, so it's going to go under just a bit. Okay. Perfect. So now we've divided this area, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use our ruler. And you want to go ahead and divide just where it's about. Let's see. From there to there. So we're gonna draw right out there. Perfect. And you just want to slowly fill this in. So we go whoop, just like that. Now it's been divided in half. We're doing the same thing on the opposite side. So we're going to here. We're going to divide it just like that. Down from here. We go up. We divide it. Again. Go ahead. And we divide it. And we just keep following this process. We just keep following these steps. We go up, over. We do these X's. This is why bisecting surfaces is so important. Because when we bisect surfaces, we're able to fully map everything out. And I want to go ahead and I want to bisect this again. I want to go up here. I want to bisect this. Just like that. And if I do this last one, we can sort of estimate from then on for the opposite side. And then what we can do is we can go ahead and we can go from where our vanishing point is over here. We can draw through these bisected planes. So that's where it's going across. From here, that's where it's going to be going across. If we want to do light fixtures, that's going to make it easier. If we want to do floor covering, it's going to make it easier. Lines for the floor. Just like that. And that's where our room is going out. And that means that on the opposite side, this is where it gets really cool. When you've done that, you can go over here to this top and bottom and say, that's where the opposite side of the room is. Where these connect, top and bottom, that's where the opposite side of the room is. That's where the opposite side of the room is. And now just like that, you've created a full hallway that's moving backwards into space. Perfect. So now that we've done that, and we've sort of boxed everything out, let's go ahead and let's grab the black here. Let's go back onto this layer. If you're using pencil, you just want to make this very light. You just want to go very lightly. Draw backwards. Draw backwards. Set this backwards. And this is where the floor is. Bottom layer of the floor. And the top layer of the surface, which is going towards the vanishing point. Perfect. Perfect, so there we have it. Alright, so that's part 2 right there. And now we're going to go ahead and we're just going to bisect it to make the smallest of details. Perfect. Now we can just go ahead and we'll just start sketching. Okay, so starting out here, we're just still going with basic large shapes. You're going to see that I am using the bisections that we made, traversing across the surface from both the left vanishing point and the right vanishing point. Now you're going to see that I'm start throwing up numbers. Now we're using reference points with reference numbers because I don't want to be using all the layers at the exact same time. You can use this on paper too, which is very helpful. For the vertical bisections on the equivalent side, on the opposite side, I'm putting down numbers of where the lines are. That way I can just make an easy reference to the opposite side and translate the point, the line, whatever it may be. So this way it makes it much easier for us to just quickly move around without having to constantly look for that one line that we need. Now drawing mainly to the right vanishing point right now, I'm going ahead and I'm going to start sort of getting the basic outline of the door itself. You're going to notice I'm going to go back and forth a few times, constantly going between the green layer which we have, which is showing us the depth which is moving into the left vanishing point, the red and orange layer which are showing us the depth on the actual front surface, and then moving back to the right vanishing point. I'm starting to now fill in some of the actual depth itself because of the green surface of showing the blast doors. The same is on the opposite side, but we don't need to show this because the viewers themselves are not seeing that left side because it's going to be covered in this case. The actual hallway is not transparent. Now using the green layer for depth, I'm drawing from the right vanishing point up, as you can see, to create those ceiling panels that I just made. Now there are actual metal plates or tiling, which you're going to see as them start bisecting on a lighter layer right up above. These exact lines I'm going to draw are going to be translated downwards to the bottom, since the plating is going to line up with the bottom tiling that you're going to see right where the entryway is to the blast doors. Drawing with a little bit of depth straight downwards, sort of eyeballing it. We're going to go ahead and draw these plates straight upwards and then connect them with a singular line. As you're about to see, I'm drawing some depth. So at this point, which I've decided for the ceiling panel, I'm drawing from the right vanishing point. I'm grabbing my ruler and I'm creating sort of an angled 45 degrees, if you will, sort of structure that moves outward. So this is going to be where the light fixtures are, which are on actual tiling, which is moved outwards from the bottom. And so if we do this, if we move this outwards from the back, we can see that the actual hallway itself goes against the metal plating behind where the entryway is to the door. Drawing from the left vanishing point, what I'm doing right now is I'm creating a general guideline for where the light fixtures would be. For the actual plating that moves outwards and that moves inwards, what's really nice about this is that you can use the vanishing point to translate these lines of the light fixtures, the exact same area, onto another panel of the exact same type, meaning that you don't have to find that distance all over again. You can simply just continue to draw in that direction to make the lighting panels as long or as short as you'd like. As you can see right here, drawing out again, creating a little bit more definition for the hallway entry, as you can see right here. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to move these lines that I've made after bisecting the surface. I'm going to move these points, the reference points, of the numbers that you see, a little bit further out so I can use the exact same method for those lines for the outermost surface now. If they're close enough, you can use the ones that you already have. I just sometimes find that it's helpful to add additional numerical points. If you weren't working digitally, you'd want to be drawing these very lightly, which is what I do when I work on paper. Paper does have its advantages, obviously, because it's much easier to do the perspective, setting it up in the beginning, making sure that your measuring points and reference points are correct. If you need correct numerical data when it comes to distance, how many feet, how far back something is, or how far away it is, or how close it is, or what's the distance between this one object and the next object, and so that helps you a lot when you're dealing with perspective. Almost done with the outer lining of the hallway now. You're going to see that I'm going to go ahead and start working on the metal plating, which is right down below. And so this metal plating is going to have a little bit of depth to it. It's going to cover the glass doors, but it's also going to be exactly lined up with the plating that we see on top. So I'm using a lighter pencil. I'm drawing straight down from that exact line of the plating, and that is where the diagonal line should go. As you can see, this exact point of wherever it ends up on that line, the bottom surface is being drawn to the left vanishing point. And we have the diagonal line, which is creating a plate on the ground. Using the same sort of technique, I'm going to continue to draw the light fixtures, which you're going to see back in the distance right here. Going from the lines that pre-exist, since I know that in the back, this paneling that we have is the exact same distance outwards, jutting outwards, as is the one previous to it. And just like that, we get to go ahead and add some extra details to show this isn't just some sort of hallway within space. Of course, this is just a draft, so after you're done, you're going to want to go over and you're going to want to add the final layer, add more details. This is just basically one object within a larger picture when you're drawing backgrounds. But this just gives you a general sense of all the things that you can do by using all of the basic principles that we've learned so far. You're going to see soon right here what I'm going to end up doing is drawing sort of a light fixture, which is right next to the elevators that you saw in the original drawing. And we're going to do a series on more cylindrical shapes. But what you can do for right now, which is very helpful, is if you draw from the left vanishing point, as you'll see within a minute, you can go ahead and sort of eyeball it, and you can create three-dimensional form to it if you know how the surface should bend in accordance with the perspective. You'll see right here I'm trying to translate points across, and then I'm trying to draw some three-dimensionality or volume to the actual tubular structure that we see right there. Drawing down from the bottom, I'm creating a shaft to give a little bit of depth, just as we saw within the original image being on the Death Star. And now we're going to go ahead, turn on all the layers, and then turn them off. We first started with just the basic construction. Then we went ahead and started adding a little bit of a box shape for a hallway. And then eventually all these lines that you went through. So I hope you enjoyed this series. Consider leaving a comment, a like, and subscribing. And there will be more perspective videos to come. Have a great day.